I'm not quite sure how many soup kitchens like this there have been. I think they passed the 21-year mark. So this is probably number 22 or 23, I'm not sure. The Shelter Trust, and as I've interviewed the various ministers over the years, but the problem seems to be getting larger. Of course, this week we've had an extraordinary disaster in Pier Road, and I gather that as a result of that 40 people are now homeless. So extra people, that is, 40 extra people are, and they're having to be housed. Whose responsibility it is to house them, I'm not sure, but I put that, you see, this is a sponsor for this event, and of course it's about wealth management, and the people who are homeless and wealth management, of course there's a relationship, isn't there, between the two? How is it possible for a place like Jersey to have homeless people, regardless of incidents like Pier Road? So, I've got questions. I hope to interview the Chief Minister, and I hope, I don't know if he's here today, the Housing Minister, but all of a sudden there are certain issues related to homelessness, housing the population, which need to be focused upon. One of the issues I'm puzzled about is that Jersey used to have a civil emergencies officer, but I've not heard of anybody under that style or title coming forward for this. So I don't know what to think. I will see if there's anybody here who I can speak to today, but I will try and come back or interview some people tomorrow if not. Right, on a very cold day, I'm with the Chief Minister. Yesterday was a cold day, but it was the Soup Kitchen, 24th anniversary of the Soup Kitchen. But of course there's been other things that have happened this week which are relevant to the Soup Kitchen. Obviously, one of the issues is a lot of people have been made homeless, which is what the Soup Kitchen is all about, being homeless. Does that affect you materially? Is that a real problem, finding accommodation for people?
Well, I'm a former trustee of Sanctuary Trust, and so I really understand how so many people in the island are in precarious housing and face the realistic option of homelessness. And many people, of course, are sofa surfing and not in constant accommodation. So yes, it is something that really troubles us deeply, and it's why we're really committed to delivering additional housing over the term of this government.
I mean, it wouldn't have helped the current tragedies, but you have lost 100 units of accommodation in Kensington Place, or they seem to be lost. I mean, at the moment, the problem isn't getting solved, is it?
Well, whilst we have decided not to go ahead with the particular project in Kensington Place, it must be said that it was criticised by the planning inspectors who held their inquiry into the Bridging Island plan, because they didn't have they found flaws with the design. It wasn't the optimum design, and what we want to do is be able to deliver better quality housing. I would like to see garden villages created, right. And actually that's what Andiam are now looking to deliver in terms of affordable housing on a green site like right. That, which we are going to work on with them at St Saviour's Hospital.
Well, you come from farming stock. You know that farming in this island has got a huge problem. They can spare some land. It's not that critical, is it?
Well, as you will remember, the Bridging Island plan debate did hotly debate and contest a number of fields for rezoning. Some of them were passed, but obviously not all of them. And it does rankle with me somewhat that now some members who were against rezoning fields are now claiming that there's cramming in town and we can't deliver any more accommodation in town. I actually want to improve the environment in town, and I can see that town dwellers aren't as satisfied by the environment in which they live as people who live in the countryside. So we've got to find a better way. I think that better way, personally, is going to be through delivering a solution and a resolution around the glasshouse sites.
Right. Well, of course, when that mini island plan was being prepared, there were loads of landowners. They weren't necessarily all farmers, desperate wanting to have their land developed. So that isn't the problem, really. There's plenty of willing sellers out there, but there's a resistance. Anyway, what's happened in the last week, you wouldn't have dreamed of, nobody would have dreamed of it. Obviously, people have died. There's all sorts of ramifications. The Grenfell inquiry is 5 years old. They've spent £150 million on the inquiry so far there. They still haven't resolved anybody to blame yet for it. It's going to go on for at least another year. Now, in this little island, this potentially, it's not on the magnitude as far as the victims are concerned, but all the issues are there for a very complicated and long inquiry. So I missed, unfortunately, you had the emergency meeting, a public presentation, and I missed it and I couldn't find it. But people, I don't know, who is organising? Who is the main person at the moment organising whatever's going to happen with regards to the tragedy in Pier Road?
Well, a police investigation has begun, and that, in the first instance, is what will happen. Once the bodies have been identified, then an inquest will be opened, and that is the usual course. Whether or not there is need for an inquiry, that will perhaps be a matter for the Assembly, but I think it would be sensible perhaps to wait for the initial findings of any police investigation.
Right. Well, of course, the police haven't yet decided in the UK whether to prosecute anybody, and that's 5 years down the line. And obviously, people who have suffered, I mean, there were quite a few people who were injured, never mind dead. They're anxious to get some. And obviously I noticed there's funding. You've got several funds. The bailiff's got a fund. I think you've put your name to a fund to raise money immediately. But if this goes on for several years and people would have lost all their possessions, perhaps, I don't know. I don't know how it affected the other flats. I don't know how it did.
Well, I think so. The Bailiffs Fund has been launched in consultation with me and the Council of Ministers. So, and we will be able to help identify what the best channels are for that. But I think you've probably quite well indicated why there's a need for the public to help support people who may need it going forwards. And as we've seen equally, as you acknowledged at the beginning, there have sadly been 2 tragic incidents.
Indeed there have.
In less than a week.
And there's a common thread between the 2 tragedies as well, because they are both have foreign international implications, because the Condor enterprise, that's a boat that's registered in the Bahamas. So the people from the Bahamas have to be involved in whatever takes place. And we don't quite yet know, assuming gas is involved. Of course, the gas company is not owned locally either. So it's owned the last I heard, it was owned in Australia, via Isle of Man and Guernsey altogether. So it's complicated. It isn't something that can be set up, investigated locally, because there are international implications, aren't there?
I think I should leave the investigating to those professional bodies that are best placed to do so. What we're really focused on at the moment is ensuring that the families and friends of those who've been lost are well supported. Also that our emergency services, who are doing sterling work and did rise to the emergency, that they're supported as well and well equipped and able to carry on their difficult work.
Is the government here, I mean, you're the head of the government, do you think they will be in a position to say, we will support people who suffered as a result, who are still alive, the families of, we will support them no matter what. Is that a possibility? In other words, because they need a support, don't they? They need it guaranteed.
Well, I think Andiam Homes should be really warmly congratulated for the way in which they have stepped up to support the people who were displaced after the tragic incident at Hodema Flats. They have been able to rehab home those people into temporary accommodation,
Right.
Because of a certain set of circumstances.
Right.
And obviously we all want those people to be able to go home, but we need to assess first the safety of their homes.
I mean, I can't imagine it would have affected many of the other flats, but we just don't know, do we? We can't imagine what damage they've suffered. We just...
Well, speaking to some of those people who were evacuated from their flats neighbouring the site of the collapsed building, they described how their windows blew in, how the doors in their flats blew open, and so they have been subject to quite considerable impact.
Right. On a personal note, I mean, this sort of thing we never expect will happen, and it does happen in places, but you just happen to be the head of the government, and it's fallen into your tray. You've got to deal with it. I mean, anybody would say, what on earth am I going to do now? I mean, do you feel comfortable with the role that you've got? Do you feel, I mean, obviously there are lots of people in your party or non-party party, never been in the States before, and in association with this, they will have to make huge decisions. Do you think people are up for that, competent to do that?
I think we've got a great States Assembly that is more diverse than any assembly before it. I think the public wanted to see some new faces, some fresh minds, and some new perspective brought to our considerations, our debates. Essentially, we're just here to represent the public, to do what we think on balance they would want us to do, and to obviously protect Jersey's interests as best we can. And so I'm really heartened by the energy, the determination, the enthusiasm of so many of our state's members, both new and more experienced.
Of course, you're calling on teams, as I understand. I haven't seen your press conference, but from the UK, specialist teams are coming in. How long they will have to be on board, I've no idea, obviously no idea. Obviously there's initial examinations have to take place, but long term, and I don't know, could be years, who knows, I don't know.
Well, the emergency services, I think, have very demanding jobs, and those teams that you speak of, who we're so grateful that they have been able to come to our support, they will be looked after as well, and their teams will be rotated so that they can get the rest that they need to carry out the really important work that lies ahead.
Okay, I mean, it's a very sensitive subject. To discuss it at all makes some people a bit upset, to say the least.
Well, it's always sad to lose people, but the particularly tragic circumstances of the incidents that we've seen in the past week have been unthinkable, haven't they? And particularly at Christmas time, we all think of everybody who's been affected, and our hearts go out to them. Do you think this might be the impetus, because of the homelessness factor which has come from it, that we might not need next year or the 4 years' time, the 25th, 26th, 27th soup kitchen? Do you think we can actually get rid of that off the agenda? It would be a wonderful thing to aim for. Sadly, I think that next year might really be challenging. But I think let's aim for a Jersey where we don't have to have a fundraiser soup kitchen for housing charities. That would be wonderful.
Okay, thanks a lot.